yeah.
And then there is another great page in this rivalry, which is when Juventus got caught cheating.
Which time? The fifth time, the sixth time, the seventh time? Which time was it?
The first time they got really officially got caught cheating. And we're talking, of course, about 2006. And Juventus have to let go of their 2004-2005 Scudetto, but Inter are awarded the 2005-2006 Scudetto. And hey, they can't wait. I mean, we can't wait. Inter can't wait to fucking boast the Scudetto in the middle of the shirt.
Oh, of course. It means because, more now.
In Italy, when you win the league, the next year you have the Italian flag at the center of your shirt. Mm-hmm. And I remember Mancini in an interview, he kept giggling. They asked him, do you think it's fair? And he was like, yeah, I think it's fair. So if that team was cheating and they arrived first, then we are the first ones, right? Like, we didn't cheat. I mean,
well, we can get into that in another episode.
I don't want to get into that, but it's fine. Let's say that it was a time in Italian football where everybody was kind of stealing. But
it's just a coincidence that the phones were tapped and the guy who owned Inter owned the phone company, right? That's just a coincidence.
I forgot about that. No, I didn't. Yeah. I know. I just try not to mention that ever. Yeah. But what happens next? What happens next is that Juventus have to try and convince their players to stay and play second flight football. And two people are just like, fuck that. And their names are Zlatan Ibrahimovic and Patrick Vieira. And they cross the divide and they join Inter Milan. So then Ibrahimovic really starts off his career, like the best part of his career, I think. Yeah. He starts off at Inter Milan and then, he moves on and everything. And then the latest episode in the rivalry, it's Antonio Conte, Juventus's former captain, Juventus's former legend, Champions League winner, one of the symbols of what being white and black means. After coaching Juventus, he goes to Chelsea. And then after Italy, he's just like, you know what? I'll just coach Inter Milan. And Juventus fans went bonkers. But more than anything, they were just like, wait, I thought that you Inter fans absolutely despised us. And now you've got Antonio Conte as a manager and Giuseppe Marotta, our manager of sports operations, who also made a name for himself at Juventus.
So you're now kind of taking all of Juventus across with you, right? If you can't beat them, join them. I don't know what it is. Which one is it?
If you can't beat them, copy
them.
Right? Yeah. But yeah, that's it. And about this weekend's fixture.
Yeah, how are you feeling about it, Tommy? How do you think? I think I'm just going to say quickly. I think despite the fact that Inter constantly bottle it, I think they could get a point, but it's Juventus. They're going to bottle it, aren't they? They're going to bottle it.
I'm worried about, we were making Serie A predictions, and I've seen the last two games that Juventus have played, and they seem to have
found... like they're turning up.
They're turning up, and one thing that I know about Juventus is that when they turn up for real. And
I think even Kulusevski is starting to look like really dangerous again, and Ronaldo is Ronaldo. Ramsey is bagging goals. I think they're starting to Pirlo is kind of stumbling across a way of it working, right?
And of course, who else could they play just when they start picking up their form? Inter Milan, of course. But I think it's going to be a good game of football. I'm really praying that Antonio Conte doesn't decide to just change entirely the squad at the last minute of play. That would be ridiculous. But we've got a similar rivalry, maybe a little less bitter. I don't know.
I think this is a better one, and I would say if we're in your time machine back to 1960, we're going even further back in this one to 1894. So now what we need to look at is the fact that Liverpool and Manchester are two cities. They are 35 miles apart, right? They are not far away. So that's 56 kilometers for all the Europeans listening. And when you think of both cities, things...
England isn't in Europe anymore. I forgot about that.
Oh, yeah. Well, you've got to... Yeah. We're independent. Anyway.
God.
56 kilometers apart. And when you think of these two cities, the same things come to mind, right? When you think of Liverpool and Manchester, you think of music, you think of fashion, you think of quite strong kind of left-wing political movements, you think of working-class cities, you think of trade, you think of these cities that opened up to the world, part of the Industrial Revolution, and these are all things that link back to this rivalry, right? So at the time, Manchester, in the Industrial Revolution, Manchester became the main city for cotton and became it had the first factory. It was the center of the world at that time. And Liverpool opened up the dock, right? All of a sudden, they stole all of the trade from Manchester and started charging people in Manchester to get the goods from the dock. So this started a rivalry between the two cities. And at this time, they were still both in Lancashire. So up until the 70s, actually, before they kind of changed the UK map, they were not only the two biggest teams in England, but the two biggest teams in Lancashire, right? So they were fighting for this really local rivalry. So the first time that they meet is in 1894. Now, Manchester United at that time were called Newton Heath, okay? And they were in the top division. Liverpool were in the second division, and they had gone unbeaten all season. So to give Manchester United Newton Heath a lifeline of survival, they played a one-off game between Manchester United and Liverpool. The winner would go to the top division, okay? Now, in that game, Liverpool win 3-2, Newton Heath are relegated, and Liverpool, who is the younger club by, I think, 12, 13 years, have replaced Newton Heath as the biggest team in Lancashire.
I just love these stories about old days football when they found themselves in situations where they were like, so how are we going to decide relegation? Let's just do it like this. You know, like you had to improvise as you were going.
There have been FA Cup finals decided on the flip of a coin. Like, these people just made it up as they went along. Like, it is crazy. And obviously that's what happens when you're starting a league, right? It's not all just set out straight away. So it goes...
It's like starting a podcast, right?
Exactly. There are wrinkles to iron out. But so up until 1909, Manchester United are still called Newton Heath, and they changed their name to Manchester United, and they moved to Old Trafford. The first game at Old Trafford is against who, Tommy?
Against Liverpool, I guess?
It is against Liverpool, and Liverpool win again, 2-0. So all of a sudden, the rivalry is really starting to stoke up as this younger team who weren't meant to be anything, all of a sudden are starting to prove a bit of a thorn in the side of the kind of more established Newton Heath, now Manchester United. Now, these teams are they're both the most decorated clubs in England, okay? So Manchester United have in total 66 trophies, and Liverpool in total have 64. We could see this table shift in the next 2 years. We could see it kind of, and this is something that's going to be a trend throughout, of kind of tides and waves of dominance, of catching each other up, and it's happened throughout history. So from 1910, we're going to jump quite dramatically forward to the two biggest managers of both teams are, so for Liverpool, it's Bill Shankly, of course, and for Manchester United, it is Matt Busby. Now, these two men were both born within 30 miles of each other in Scotland, okay? You can throw also Jock Stein, who was manager of Celtic. All three of these were born within like the kind of the same city, the same area of Scotland. Anyway, these two managers went on to create these two teams, or to set these two teams as the biggest clubs in England. So Bill Shankly is at Manchester United from 1959 to 1974. And Matt Busby is at Liverpool from 1945 to 1969, right?
What, 24 years?
So long, right? So Matt Busby, while he's at Manchester United, he wins 5 league titles, 2 FA Cups, and of course, the European Cup, becoming the first English side to win the European Cup. Not the first British, but the first English side to win the European Cup. He was, of course, in charge of the Munich air disaster. He was in charge for the Munich air disaster, not of. That was a very poor choice of preposition there.
I always tell my students that prepositions in English are very important.
Very important. He didn't orchestrate it. I'm not accusing him of that. In 1958, of course, an absolute tragedy. And this is something that, again, both clubs share in common, right? Manchester United had the tragedy of the Munich air disaster, and Liverpool have the disaster of Hillsborough. And again, this is something, there are so many things that these clubs have in common. I think it makes them hate each other more.
Also the color of their jerseys, right?
Yeah. Just something as simple as that, right? So anyway, Bill Shankly was in charge from 1959 to 1974, won 3 league titles, 2 FA Cups, and a UEFA Cup. So at this time, kind of Manchester United are, in the 60s, Manchester United are the team, right? They have George Best, they're winning league titles, they are the successful team in England. Then the 70s hit and it shifts. Now, this is away from Bill Shankly. This is where Bob Paisley takes over. And this is when Liverpool just dominate Europe, okay? They win multiple European Cups, multiple leagues. The biggest challenges at the time are Everton. United do not have a sniff. And this is, so like I was saying about the waves, kind of Manchester United raced away and then they go quiet. Liverpool race away and then they go quiet. So in the 70s, Liverpool dominate, Manchester United are kind of nowhere. And then it all changes in 86. Who is appointed in charge of Manchester United in 86?
Sir Alex Ferguson?
Correct. Sir Alex Ferguson takes over. And in one of his first press conferences, he says, I want to knock them off their perch.
Wow.
Right? He says that his target is to take the record of the most league titles won. Now, before he took over, okay, Manchester United hadn't won a league title since the 66-67 season, right? They went a long time without winning the league. So for him to win the league in 92-93 for the first time, that ends a drought that is like the drought of all droughts. I remember my dad telling me at the time that, like, I don't know if there was memes in the early 90s, but he remembers getting really weird. It sounds really retro, but like emails sent to him, like chain emails of people being like things that have happened since Manchester United last won the league. Like man has been to the moon, stuff like that, right? And kind of, there was a lot, it was a bit of a running joke, much like what happened with Liverpool when they didn't win the league for 30 years. People were making the same jokes. Like, it's another, like, both clubs go through these droughts and then fits of dominance. So obviously Ferguson takes over and Liverpool are nowhere. The 90s for Liverpool really wasn't a great time. They didn't really win many things. I think they had Souness was a bit of a disaster. They had Roy Evans, who wasn't great either. And in the meanwhile, United are just winning everything. They win the European Cup. They win most of the Premier League titles when Arsenal aren't winning it the 2 times. Like, so it's for both sets of fans, they've had to at times sit back and watch their rival absolutely dominate while they've not been able to do anything. And again, another experience that they've both had to share. So after coming into this, the 90s Ferguson, the kind of standout games are the 96 FA Cup final, Liverpool and United meet. And United, Cantona scores the winner to secure the double. In 2003, Liverpool beat United in the League Cup. Like, when they've beaten each other in finals, it's always kind of been to stop something. Like, I think in this 77 Cup final, United beat Liverpool to stop them from making the treble. And then United would then go on to be the first English team to win the treble. Like,
I remember I still have that hat somewhere. My sister had gone to England in 2005 and she got me a Manchester United hat because I liked football. And then I started saying, the team I support in England is Manchester United. And then my dad said, but the biggest team in England is Liverpool. And then I was very confused. And like,
it's hard to argue otherwise,
right? It's very hard to argue, because then I found myself, like, back in the day, like with the first like internet pages, like the connection through the telephone and everything.
Asking Jeeves,
exactly, like yelling at my sister for being on the phone because my connection would fall down. But I was like researching like the stats and like what won more, and it was always very close. I was like, I can't decide who is the better team.
And the thing is, like, so if you look back now, like Liverpool, so it's weird because Manchester United's dominance was always of the league in the 90s, but then they kind of won more European Cups, and then Liverpool were dominating the league and won their European Cups. It's just, they've both fans have lived a very similar experience, and I think it does make the rivalry a bit more heated. But talking about the rivalry, this is one of the rivalries where the players really do get involved. Like, the players really get involved. So I was looking for like quotes, and My God, there's a few of them. So we're going to start. I'm going to go for a few Liverpool ones, then a few